Bankers/lenders of Reddit, what is the most bizarre loan you have seen people apply for? My aunt's old ex-boyfriend was a banker. Always told us about how someone wanted a loan for a small business that was a barbecue joint with strippers, but the strippers are eating barbecue and people are watching and throwing money. I used to practice the art of personal loans. Someone wanted $10,000 to buy a ranch in Tennessee, and we were in LA, so I asked him how he planned to buy a ranch in Tennessee with only $10,000. He then ran away without a word. To this day I still wonder what he really would have done with the $10K if I had given it to him. One of my co-workers had a customer get approved for a business credit card and he quickly used that to spend $10K on breast enhancement for his wife. When we asked him how this could even be considered a business expense, he told us, "Well, she's in sales. I worked as a bank teller in college. My branch had a guy try to take out a $60,000 personal loan to help his girlfriend in Russia pay off border control so she could finally come join him in the US after a 2-year exclusively text-based relationship. No matter what we said, he remained firmly convinced that she existed and was in love with him and that the $30,000 he'd already sent her was money well spent. We didn't give him the loan. He closed his accounts on the spot, taking the entire $1,000 he had left with him. Don't know if it counts, but my fiancé is a banker and had an unemployed, retired I think, guy legitimately not understand why he couldn't use his credit card limit as income to get approved for a mortgage. I work in 401k administration. You can take a loan out on your 401k depending on how the plan is set up. One of the provisions for many plans is that you can take a $5,000 loan if you have a baby or adopt. Someone called in asking to take a loan because their friend had a baby. What? No, we won't give you $5,000 whenever someone you know has a child. So we had a guy come in wanting a car loan for a used diesel truck. The truck was $15K. Unfortunately the truck had high mileage and his credit wasn't the greatest and we could only approve him for $6K and 15% interest. It was not a good loan and I told the customer as much. I advised finding a lower mileage, newer vehicle and waiting 6 months to repair minor credit issues in order to get a lower interest rate. He insisted on getting that truck right that very moment. He proceeded to tap into his retirement funds. Probably paid some insane penalties and taxes, paid the $9K down payment and signed the paperwork for the loan. 3 months later he sold the truck at a loss. We had a guy who needed just a little more money to catch the Sasquatch. He had a guy that was willing to pay him billions of dollars once he caught it. It sounds like a joke, but the guy was dead serious. Gentleman came into my small local credit union to apply for a car loan. Great. What kind of car is it? A Jeep. Awesome. What's the exact model? It's custom. Well, what year is it? 1989. Oh, a little on the older side. And the mileage? Not sure, the guy I'm buying it from is in different state. Oh, I'm sorry sir, it would have to be registered in state. Oh. Well, do you know how to register a monster truck with the DMV? Excuse me? Yeah, the Jeep's been converted to a monster truck. I'm not just gonna drive it around. Oh. I'm so sorry, we won't be able to finance your, out-of-state, vintage, monster truck. A woman called asking for a personal loan to pay the negative balance in her account that she owed us. My banker told me a story of a rapper who asked for a loan to make his music video, where he produced an itemized list of the various items he'd be renting, including 2 kilos of cocaine. He's usually not one for telling tall tales, but this just borders the line between believable and not for me. Most surprising thing is the guy was planning on renting cocaine. Saddest one I ever got was an 88-year-old woman who applied for a $100 loan to get a window AC unit for her trailer. She didn't have a computer to apply online and wasn't able to drive, so his daughter drove her to the branch. The temps were getting up to 104 that summer and it was dangerous for her to be inside. The unit was $60 but she was too frail to pick it up and needed the extra $40 to get it installed. We couldn't approve her and I was a little upset about the daughter. She couldn't save $40 for 2 months to help out her mom. Not a banker, but I heard a co-worker at a previous job complaining to someone that his loan application for his cigarette company was denied. His logic was that he enjoyed rolling his own smokes, so why not start a business selling hand-rolled cigs? He legit thought he would make millions doing it. Not too crazy, but an airplane. Not just a single prop Cessna or anything like that, but this plane could seat like 8 to 10 people and had climate control and everything. My head underwriter didn't want me to use the plane itself as collateral, as he could just take off with it and end up anywhere on the planet. After explaining that was pretty much true with the car/boat loan too, she acquiesced. I'm not going to tell you for privacy's sake how much it was, but let's say that I could have not sold another loan for about 6 months and still exceeded all of my goals. Not a banker, of course. I handled a fraud case where the lady took out a $6,000 personal loan in cash, I think that was the amount, this was several years ago, to send to who she thought was an 80s-era country singer who claimed to be in financial trouble. She stuck the cash in an envelope and mailed it to another state. She also sent several $1,000s worth of iTunes gift cards through the mail to him because somehow that would help him pay his bills or something. Altogether I think it was close to $20,000 she sent. I make agriculture loans exclusively. No other loans except to farmers and ranchers. Borrower's wife comes in mid-40s, asks to borrow $10,000 but doesn't want husband to know. I ask the purpose, she beats around, then finally tells me she needs the money for breast enhancements. I tell her I can only make loans that enhance the farm, then she gives me this big spiel about how it would increase her husband's morale, thus a better farm. Still hard no. Somehow she gets the procedure. 2 years later she has nice breasts, a new husband, and together they own half of a cotton farm. I still bank the first husband. I used to work in a department of Wells Fargo that specialized in the weird. All the loans no other department would touch. It started as a way to keep business customers with lots of money happy. Like a courtesy loan, knowing that we would make money from them elsewhere. One of the most iconic loans, that we used as an example to explain to other departments what we did, was a loan where a farmer put up a barn as collateral to get a loan to buy his wife's dentures. In 2007, my buddy, who had been a bartender, was hired by a regular at his bar to become a mortgage underwriter. One of his first customers was a guy who made $1,800 per month applying for a loan that had a monthly payment of $3,600 per month to start, but it was an ARM, and it was slated to increase to $5,400 per month after 3 years. And this loan was to buy a boat, not a house. The guy who hired my buddy came in and told my buddy to underwrite the loan. And that's the story of how my buddy quit his new job before his first shift even ended. Not a banker, but something I saw in an article a year or two ago, about most unusual loan reasons in my city. The ones that I still remember were to buy a Maine Coon cat, $2,000 at that time, I think, historical books, and arranging a marriage for an ex-wife. I work in tech, specifically in the mortgage industry. The funniest thing I saw was a closing disclosure, the document you get before your loan that covers all your payoffs among other things, for someone who was paying off a ton of debt from a variety of sources by refinancing their home. They had a Section K, which is basically third-party payoffs, that was literally longer than our document form could handle. Normally the section can handle 10 to 11 payoffs, and it's rare for us to see more than 2 or 3. This person had close to 40, which is just insane. It took our tech team 3 days to get a new template that would work, get it approved, and fix the software so it could be handled. We used to offer a home equity line of credit with the marketing along the lines of it's like turning your house into a savings account. It even came with a Visa card. Had a monthly adjustable variable rate tied to the prime rate. People applied for it like mad, and that is the most bizarre loan I have ever seen people apply for. I'm pretty confident they all lost their houses in the housing implosion a few years later. Home equity is a useful tool, but you know people were going on vacations and buying groceries with that fucking Visa card. I am not a banker, but a customer who received loan offers. I find it bizarre that people take loans to go on vacation. Unless one of the travelers is dying or will never be able to travel in the future, borrowing money to go on vacation baffles me. Years ago, a friend of mine that works as a loan officer had to explain to a guy that he couldn't get an additional loan to cover the down payment on a mortgage. The guy didn't have a job, but he kept insisting that he would be starting some unspecified job in 3 months. He didn't know how much it paid. A guy wanted $200 for concert tickets. His credit score was 420. He did not get a loan. This thread has convinced me to walk into my bank and ask them for a loan to start up my shrimp breeding and selling business just to see the reaction. I have collateral in the form of owned property and a fairly high credit rating, so I'd like to see the battle between how absurd the idea seems versus the fact that it might be a valid loan to provide to an eligible person. All you tellers, watch out. I could be the next weirdo sitting at your desk. I'll have to say that all of this is pretty tame compared to the ass end of commercial leasing industry where desperate people lease stupid shit at 35% interest. Pro tip: if the best leasing rate you can qualify for is 35%, your business has already failed and you are in denial. Not me, but my dad worked for City Financial way back. He told me how this guy took out a loan to buy a ring for his girlfriend of several months, bought her car, and to give her what was left over to help her out with her kids. That same guy came back a week later to cancel it because she took off with the car, money, and ring and ditched him and her kids. I was a mortgage loan officer in the refi boom after September 11th. I was doing mainly 130K or so refi, or cash out loans. VP for an investment bank called in off our direct mail piece. 900K house. Wanted a lower rate on a 30-year note. Made about $750K a year. Pull his credit, almost $500,000 in credit card debt. He claimed to be borrowing money at near 0% and investing it in short-term CDs for about a 1% spread just for the fun of it. Couldn't qualify with the loans, wouldn't pay them off and stopped playing the game, and the house didn't appraise high enough to roll closing costs in. Nice guy. I believe he was spending the money obviously on something else and it was long gone. He couldn't admit this to guys at work, so he called us. I worked it for months. Had a new idea and he emailed me and said he got it done elsewhere and to not contact him anymore. Not a banker/lender, but the borrower. This was embarrassing. I had never taken out a loan in my life because I was very frugal and lived within my means. My credit card had barely any activity on it even, although all payments were paid off within the billing period. My very first loan at 25 years old was for my dog's orthopedic surgery, $5,000. She was a great dog. She had a bum leg. I wasn't going to let her die for lack of $5,000. My banker told me straight up that he would put the dog down if he were in my shoes. I started crying. That's the embarrassing part, because I never cried at that time, and told him he could just fuck right off, and to give me goddamned loan because I had the collateral to cover it. I owned a house. I cried so hard that people in the outer areas started noticing. The bank manager came over, inquired as to what the problem was, and after the explanation, the loan officer was led into the back room by staff, and the bank manager approved my loan on the spot. He hugged me and apologized as I left. I accidentally dripped snot on his tie because I was such a mess. I really loved that dog. She was well worth the $5,000. She is residing in the pet cemetery in my forest now. She even has a headstone. Not a banker, but I set up auto loans for customers when I worked at a dealership, and I had one lady who seemed fairly normal and cogent get nearly all the way through the process when she informed me/us that God was arranging for how she would pay for the car. I have a friend who's a farmer and beekeeper. He lost 60% of his hives to CCD, so he was forced to go to his banker and ask for a $1 million loan to buy replacement bees. A bee dies in 30 days. He made it work, and is still in business. But the thought of that debt obligation makes me pucker every time I think about it. $1 million loan, for insects with a 30-day lifespan. This guy came in asking for a loan to get his dope growing business up and running. When I denied him, he shouted to everyone in the bank that I sexually assaulted him at a party. When confronted about how a deadbeat guy was a pill popper and degenerate gambler, was going to make good on interest, he said he was about to win the lawsuit of a lifetime. Who was he suing? Little League. Why? Because he got hit with a foul ball and he was hurt. When his two most valuable assets were a Ford Ranger with 100,000 miles and a 15-year-old big screen TV, he was told to pound sand. Used to work with a 60-year-old guy who tried to get a $50,000 personal loan to finance his own family genealogical research, including expensive DNA testing and travel to possible worldwide locations to search archives. I didn't know him well, but he was a nice guy with a weird obsession for medieval shit. Always talking about swords and horse riding. They actually gave him the loan, but at 15%. To his credit, dude went full tilt into it. He immediately started with DNA genealogy shit, not just the companies that do this but getting in touch with universities, non-profits, and all sorts of shit. We lived near a hub airport and dude started flying every weekend to NYC and then to different small towns across the US. It was probably 6 months into this when he took a few weeks off during our slow season and he never came back. Turns out that all of this was for an inheritance claim in France. My name has finally paid off. I've seen everything from sad moments of parents begging for a loan to bury their child. An 18-year-old wanting new tits. Cancer treatments. Leaving their abusive spouse. Their fifth ATV when they can't afford it. You learn a lot about people and what's important to them when you're underwriting credit. It's a tough job to decline the emotional one. I see in the comments below all the romance scams. They're common. If you're looking for bizzare, ask the commercial/small business loans groups. The ones that support the sex trade. That's where it gets freaky deaky. Not a banker or lender. However, my college roommate last year was always spending insane amounts of money on stuff. 1 week a new TV and PS4, the next a car, and the next some other overly priced unneeded thing. It was insane. I asked him where'd he get all his money. He said it was from his loans. I assumed maybe it was a bit extra that he got in a school refund when you overpay your school bill with your loans/grants/scholarships, etc., albeit a bit more than I would expect. Nope. Literally took out loan to buy this stuff. I had to explain to him that you have to pay it back, it's not just free money. That was a real punch in the balls for him. Someone looking to refinance their student loan debt because you can't include student debt in bankruptcy. Work asking SoftBank for several $billion when their business model was already found to be a failure. My husband works in a bank and he says it's ridiculous how much people borrow for their weddings. I don't get it. Why do you need a lavish ceremony when you obviously can't afford it? I know they do it to impress others, but still. I once had a client apply for a loan for porn supplies. I was the unfortunate one who had to tell him that we would not be giving him the $150,000 loan.